This podcast has certainly given me the opportunity to build a vast network of great coaches and to learn some of the details that make them successful and share them with you, the listener. And this is one of my favorites from the past. Again, a lot of these that I re-air here, if you weren't listening in the first couple of years, you probably missed them, but this is one I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to learn from. This one is with Pete Shinnick, the head football coach at West Florida. He's done a tremendous job there. Took the program to 5-6, turned it around, and brought the team to a national championship. It's also earned him AFCA Division II Coach of the Year honors. So here's my first interview with Pete Shinnick, head football coach at West Florida.
I'm excited to be joined today by Division II AFCA Coach of the Year, national runner-up in Division II, head football coach at West Florida, Pete Shinnick. Coach, great to have you here today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Very excited to be with you.
Coach, let's talk a little bit about what you've done at West Florida, because it's something that hasn't been done before. You're the quickest from starting a program to a national championship. That process began 4 years ago when you didn't even have players. Talk to us about how you moved from zero to the top of the game and getting to the national championship.
Well, very long, drawn out process. And so a tremendous amount of work by my coaching staff and then our players to really have great vision and, really stay true to the course of what we were trying to accomplish. And so, when I came to West Florida, I had been at the University of North Carolina, Pembroke for 8 years. And we started the program from scratch there as well. And in our third year, we made the playoffs. So we did have a formula for what this looked like. We did have an idea as to how we could, take a program and grow it and get it to a place where it could have success. And, the thing that I probably, give a lot of credit to is our administration and our athletic director just really helping us achieve what we were able to do in 2017. Dave Scott, our AD, did a fantastic job of laying the groundwork, helping us get done what we needed to get done, how we needed it to get done, and, put us in a position to do that. And then really, once all that's in place, what I foresaw and, the vision that I had was just create a great culture in our program that was really built on positive energy, built on unity, and built on smart, hard work. And those are our core values: smart, hard work, positive energy, unity. And everything that we do really is going to circle around those actions and those beliefs and play that out in every guy and every coach and in every, thing that we're doing. And, we really wanted to get better. Obviously in 2017 from 16, but in 2016 we started pretty hot. I mean, we were 5-3 going into our last 3 games, and then really ran out of gas. And a lot of that had to do with our young guys not knowing what it took to play a whole season. So for a team in 16 to really be dead tired, exhausted, have nothing left to finish the season, and then for that, same team basically in 2017 to be able to play 15 games, great testimony to our players understanding what needed to take place, and then our coaches to put those guys in position, because a phenomenal transformation took place over the course of 1 year. So, a lot of hard work, a lot of planning, a lot of adjustments to plans, but obviously very excited about the end result to get our team to the national championship in our second year.
Coach, that process obviously takes a lot of vision. As you mentioned, the groundwork, the foundation had to be strong, and a lot of people contributed to that. But the foundation of this probably started years back. You had the opportunity to lead this. Let's talk a little bit about your growth and your journey as a coach. And first of all, starting with, what was it that sparked your interest in coaching, and think about that moment when you said, "This is what I'm going to do"?
Yeah, I grew up in a football family. So my dad played 13 years in the NFL with the Baltimore Colts, played from 1957 to 1969. And then he got into coaching right after that. And really from about 70 until 1970 to 1990, he coached. So I had an opportunity to, be in and out of meetings on the sideline, watch coaches engage with players, see what it looked like, and really have the opportunity to see the type of impact that my dad was having. And I give my dad a tremendous amount of credit just for the influence that he's had on my life because of how he interacted with his players, because of how he treated players in other positions, and how he conducted himself. And that's really what sparked in me the desire to coach. Now, I went to college at the University of Colorado and played football there. I've got three brothers who played D1 football. I had a brother play at UCLA, Penn State, and Hawaii. So obviously football was in our blood. But when I went to Colorado, I don't know that I necessarily said, yeah, I'm getting into coaching. That's what I want to do. But as I looked at different avenues of, what my future would look like, they all seemed to come back to coaching. And my junior year is really when I made the decision that this is what I want to do. And this is, where I want to spend the rest of my life doing, is in the coaching profession. And so was fortunate enough, to get a volunteer job at the University of Richmond under Dal Shealy, and then was able to become a GA at Arkansas under Ken Hatfield. He left and went to Clemson. And really my career from there, got the recruiting coordinator job at Oregon State, and then coached at Northern Michigan and St. Cloud State and Humboldt State, and then got my first head coaching job at Azusa Pacific at age 33, and, left Azusa Pacific after 7 years, and, went and started the program at UNC Pembroke, and then came here 4 years ago. So my philosophy, my understanding of football really is rooted in my father, and then obviously Bill McCartney and his coaching staff. Les Miles was my position coach. Jerry DiNardo was a coach on that staff, very influential. And then my time with Ken Hatfield. And really those years really put me in the position where I feel like I'm at now. And then obviously you adjust and grow to, different type of guys you're coaching. So I was very fortunate to have, the upbringing that I did, but then, I think even more so, just really, great men who did it the right way.
That's an impressive list there, Coach, of guys who really helped you shape yourself as a coach. What were some of the lessons, looking back on it, if you were to pick out 2 or 3 lessons you learned along the way that really impacted, your growth as a coach, then obviously to be able to step into a leadership opportunity like this at a new football program?
Yeah, I think, one of the main things that I think my dad did a great job is never forget what it's like to be a player. As a coach, you're out there in a T-shirt and a hat and some shorts, and it's 105 degrees, and you're coaching guys who are in a helmet, shoulder pads, thigh pads, girdle, all those type of things. But my dad was very clear. Never forget what it's like to be a player. Never forget what it's like. Those guys, they're working, they're going. Remember what that's like. And always keep that in mind as you're approaching your schedule, as you're approaching your teaching, your install, and your, progression in what you're doing. And then also that, I think from the coaches that I was around, looking at them, how they handled themselves on the sideline and how they handled themselves with players. I think we've got a phenomenal opportunity as coaches to really positively impact young men in this profession. And we can do a lot of good or we can do a lot of damage, just depending on our approach and how we do it. And I want to be somebody who's doing, tremendous amount of positive, impact on guys as opposed to negatively impact. And so your words matter and your construction matters. And are we making these guys better? And really what it's come down to is from the guys that I, took from, was, am I just giving these guys instructions, or am I motivating and inspiring them to be better husbands and fathers, employers, employees? And so we can put a good football program out there, but what type of person are we developing? And that's really what's kind of driven me since I've been a head coach for 20 years. Our number one goal for the program is help each guy really become a better person. That's what we're trying to do.
Coach, you mentioned, never forgetting what it's like to be a player. You've mentioned, teaching them, instructing them. And obviously the bigger goal outside of football is to have this great vehicle with the game to drive them to be better people. So we'll kind of get into what you do on your culture in a second, but I do want to focus on that teaching part. And, since I'm close to your age, the way we learned the game is distinctly different. And in general, the way these kids are learning today is distinctly different than how we learned, and a lot of it has been the technology. Before you guys hit the field, you have those classroom opportunities. What are you doing within those sessions that you feel is really connecting with the players and helping them learn their assignments, learn what they need to do to go out there and execute at an elite level?
Well, first off, you're right. Technology has changed how we approach this and what takes place. And so, when I went to the University of Colorado, they handed me a 3-inch thick binder with, probably 400 plays in there or whatever it was, on a bunch of diagrams that were hand drawn. And, I'm looking to see where the line of the guard was to know, who I was supposed to block, on this play. So we don't hand out a playbook anymore. The majority of our teaching is really video related through, video and graphics and diagrams, interactive teaching. And we're trying to, connect with a generation that is viewing, 90% of their material on their phones and, on their computers. And so trying to make something that is attractive to them while also interactive and also teachable is really, the challenge that I think we face each year. And then the second thing is you've got to know the young men that you're coaching to understand what their learning style is and how they assimilate the information that you're giving them. And so as we look at it, some guys, can sit in the room and get everything that you say. Other guys, you've got to voice over to give them exactly what the information is. And then some guys, you got to make them write it down. And so our job as coaches is to not get frustrated with the guys that you got to make it and, have them write it down, but to know who needs to do that and coach them up to do it. Everybody learns differently. Everybody grasps material in a different way. Our job is to figure out, how these guys learn. So the game and technology has advanced. Guys can go watch all our games. They can watch our cut-ups, things that you used to have to go into the coach's office, to get the reel and, watch it. It's on their phones now. So we've taken advantage of technology. We've made it available to our guys so that by the time we have our first practice, they already know everything that we're going to do. And really our meetings, we start spring ball on Saturday. Our first meeting is really going to be review with a lot of guys because they already understand what the offense is, what the defense is, and how we're putting it in, and they already have it available through their computer and through their apps.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about that, the opportunity you have. And I know years ago, I was turned on to the idea, a classroom method called flip learning, with the idea that you can teach a lot outside the classroom. You think about this, the coach standing up in the meeting room presenting, you can't rewind him, in general, right. We tell those guys all the time, stop me, ask questions. But it's just the human nature to not really interject in those situations as much as you would like to. So it's the opportunity to really get those guys knowing the material, come in and kind of do it. I've seen some very creative ways with guys, what they're doing out there with additional technology like virtual reality in those situations. I know there's a coach, and actually I saw a video on Twitter the other day where they're using poker chips to, just players working with each other, going through things. So that idea of just being interactive with them, finding the different ways they learn, I think is a huge opportunity. And it really goes back to forming those connections as well. Because if we start with these guys in the classroom and we don't connect because we don't understand how they learn, we're kind of setting ourselves up for failure in that relationship, and developing that belief and trust in what we're doing when, Coach, man, I don't understand what you're saying. So I applaud you on utilizing the technology. And obviously, I think the key thing you said is understanding how guys learn, because that becomes part of our culture as well.
Well, no, and you mentioned we call it flip coaching. Obviously, it started as flip teaching, but we call it flip coaching. And so I would encourage anybody listening to, Google that and take a look at it, because it really does put a lot more on the individual to learn what we're asking them to, and then come to the meeting, as opposed not necessarily learn it, but they need to now ask questions from what we've already presented to them. It takes a little more time on the front end for coaches, because they're putting out, some videos here and there and instruction-wise. But it's been a great tool for us really going into fall camp for our freshmen, and, them having the opportunity to learn on their own. Like you said, rewind, play it back, hear the voiceover, and then come into the meeting room and go, hey, verse cover 3, we do this. Or if they line up in trips, my adjustment is this, as opposed to, you're teaching everything from scratch, and then we're going to go run out there on the field and expect them to be great at it. So great teaching tool. And then again, I would reiterate, you got to know how you guys learn. You got to know what they're doing. You can't expect everybody to, you wave your finger and you draw something on air about, 2 out of 10 guys are going to be able to get that. The other 8 are going to need it drawn someplace else. And, what's important for us in pressure situations is, in a game, if a guy's a visual learner and you're giving him a voiceover instruction, you might want to have a whiteboard available to draw for that guy, because he might not get it. And now you're gonna come down to trying to teach a visual learner off a verbal cue in a pressure situation in a game. You better know how your guys learn so that you're able to communicate that to them when the pressure's on.
Absolutely, that's a great point, Coach. You bring him to the sideline. You need to know very quick how to communicate, and you make a great point there. You don't want to do it in a way that is really not relevant to their understanding, because they're going to go out there and not be able to execute the adjustment you wanted.
Correct.
Well, Coach, 4 years ago, no players. The process starts for you. We talked about the groundwork, but I know from having recruited Florida is rich with talent. In fact, as a college coach, that was my recruiting territory. I begrudgingly volunteered for that opportunity to get out of Cleveland, Ohio, and get to Florida in December through March. What comes first in that process? Is it finding the talent and then fitting them into a culture, or finding the culture, setting the culture, and then finding the talent that fits that culture?
Well, yeah. First off, our culture was defined because, I've been a head coach for 16 years.
Right.
And so that had been established by what I wanted to accomplish and what, I knew I'm comfortable coaching, and what I knew I was comfortable dealing with from a player personnel type, as well as the coaching staff. And so when I originally came here, 4 of my 5 full-time coaches had been with me at UNC Pembroke. And so that obviously helped create the culture. But we were going to do things the way we had done things and the way we had had success. It's what I believe in, and it's what I firmly feel, fits. And so with that being said, then obviously you have to identify talent. And, if a guy can't play, then, he might be a great kid and he might be a great student, but if he can't play at the level that we're looking at, we're going to get fired. And so athletic evaluation is crucial to what we're looking for. Now, if he's a bad person or first of all, bad student's not getting into the University of West Florida. I think we have the highest academic standards any football playing institution in our conference. We don't let, just D2 qualifiers in, which a lot of the teams in our conference do. But we don't mind that because we know we're getting a good kid. We know we're getting somebody who's serious about getting a degree. And so once we identify athletically what we're looking for, and we've got different specs at every position as to what we're trying to accomplish, then we find out, does he meet our academic standard? Then we want to know what type of person he is. And my staff has done a fantastic job, really, of kind of alleviating the guys and weeding out the guys that don't fit the character of what we're trying to build here. And every coach that recruits understands if he's recruiting a DB for our defensive coordinator and DB coach, Darian Doolin, he knows what Darian Doolin wants in his meeting room. And he understands what he has in that meeting room. And if he's got he's got a group that gets it and understands it, we're trying to bring in as many of those guys as possible. And so we understand the culture of our program, but more importantly, we understand what each room looks like. And so if you got a room that's great and high in leadership and all that, you might be able to take a guy who, hasn't been at the top of all the things, but could really benefit from being in a culture like ours. But if you already got 2 or 3 guys like that in the room, then that room can't handle that, because then that room could get turned. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely a balance.
So most definitely. And I mean, a balance that's almost, 90-10 as opposed to 50-50. You're looking for 90% of your group to be where you want it. But if guys in the recruiting process, and, I'm not going to go into all the keys that we look for, but if guys in the recruiting process don't meet up to our standard, how they communicate, what it's like when we do our one-on-one with them in the school, what they're like on the phone, what their social media pages look like, then they may be on our recruiting board. And I'm like, hey, we liked him athletically. Yeah, coach, he doesn't fit what we're looking for. Okay, on to the next guy. I trust each of our coaches' evaluation of those players from a character, program, culture, fit wise. But obviously, it all starts with athletic ability. Then it goes to, can they get into school? And for the most part, we're looking for a 3.0 and a 21 on the ACT. So, we're looking for a pretty high-end academic young man. Our school has, high standards. And so with that, then he's got to be the right fit. And I think what's made us, I know what's made us and what gave us the opportunity to play for the national championship in our second year is we've got a lot of like-minded young men who have bought into the way we're doing things.
Coach, obviously, to get to the top, you need the elite talent. You need the elite culture as well. And really, that coupled with obviously a great strategy, I think all those things together really work. I know I hear a lot of guys right now, the buzzword is culture, and it certainly starts with culture. But you need those things as well. We talked about the talent acquisition, the strategy we'll get into in a little bit, but let's focus on that culture right now and tell us what really the pillars are of your culture.
Well, it's really, good people doing good things. And so going back to our core values, unity, positive energy, and smart hard work. I would say this about our 2017 team. I wouldn't say we were more talented than anybody that we played. And I would actually say that some of the people we played were more talented. I think everybody we played felt they could have beat us. But our team believed they could beat anybody we played. And we showed them what their best looked like, and we showed them what they were capable of. And then they went out and wanted to perform at that level. They went out and wanted to play at that level. And then as our coaches found out what that level looked like, held them to it, but then also called plays accordingly to put them in the position they needed to be to play at that high level. So it really is a multi-layered, piece of, work that took place throughout the course of 2017 for us. And, we were 5-3 at the end of 2016 and lost our last 3 games. And the last 2 teams we played beat us 120-3. And then we were 5-3. One of our games got canceled. We've got 2 games left playing those 2 teams that beat us 120-3. And Monday before the first game, or of the end of our season, I'm up there telling our guys we've got what it takes to beat these last 2 teams. We've got what it takes to finish this season strong. And I told them, I said, look, I believe that this 2017 team is much better than the 2016 team. But right now we're 5-3. This is where we were last year. We've got to finish strong to have some evidence that shows that. And we went out, team that beat us 51-3. We beat them 31-7. And then a team that beat us 69-0. We went out and beat them 34-31. So we really had a team that bought into everything that we were telling them. We really had a team that believed in what we were trying to accomplish. And so it says a lot for who those guys are. It says a lot for what we were trying to sell. But at the same time, it really, came down to our coaches setting them up for success, putting them in a position where they could be successful, and giving them the opportunity to do that.
Coach, I know you really make a focus in your culture on those relationships, how you treat each other, in creating the unity amongst your players and staff. Talk to us a little bit about your philosophy on that, as well as the execution of those things, especially as you get into things like you're going into right now, spring ball and then summer camp.
Sure. And, I think for us, we created core values, and until they execute at the level you want them to be, they're really projected values that you're trying to put on your program. So when we came in, we called them core values, but really we were just projecting that, hey, we wanted positive energy, and we wanted smart, hard work, and we wanted unity. But until you go out and execute that, you know what I mean? It's really just projected values. Does that make sense? So for us, unity is a huge, huge deal, because I'm a firm believer if you believe in a guy and you trust a guy, you support a guy, the more you do that, then the more you're going to care. And once we get this generation to care about each other, we got an opportunity to accomplish a lot of great things. So everything we do is based to get our guys to know each other, to get our guys to understand each other, and to get our guys familiar with each other. So in spring ball, every time we do a combo drill, every time we do a team drill, every time we do something where an offensive player goes against the defensive player, or the D-line and the linebackers work together, or the running backs and the quarterbacks work together, when that session ends, we're going to thank each other. We're going to shake a hand, high five, hug a guy, whatever we're going to do. And that's really just to get offense, defense, position groups together. And then we spend a lot of time in fall camp making each guy get in a group of about 10 to 12 guys and tell their life story, and get to hear where a guy's from, and get to hear who his hero is, to get to hear what a hardship was, to get to hear what his strengths are, to get to hear what he wants to do in his future. And we carve out time, and that's time we could be spending, talking about the inside zone or talking about cover 3 or whatever, but we're going to take the time to get to know each other. And we're going to take time to invest in each other. And then, we do certain things. We'll challenge guys, who knows who, and how many guys can name everybody on the team, and how many guys can name every guy on the team, and then, say where they're from and all that type of stuff, just to continue to, get interaction and get people talking and get people understanding. So unity to me is, the key to what took place. And I think if you watch our sidelines, and you watch the energy that our guys have in practice, it's because they're excited about the next guy doing well. We have great competition within, DBs and wide receivers, but when game time comes, the DBs are loving the wide receivers, and the wide receivers are loving the DBs, and excited when those guys are making big plays. So that all starts, it's not something that just happens. It's something that we work at, and it's something that we spend a lot of time doing, and it's paid great dividends for us.
Coach, I think the biggest thing, you talk about those things, obviously, building that trust, building that belief. Those are things that translate onto the field. I know a lot of us, when we're looking at culture, we think about the end result, which is we want to impact young men in a positive way. We want this to be a great experience. We cannot step over that part that exists on the field. We need to show them excellence on the field. And it begins with unity. It begins with things that build belief, build trust, not just amongst the players, but with the coaching staff as well. I mean, we have, there's a lot of challenges in the game. There's a lot of challenges within, the time that we have to do those things that the NCAA, in your case, allows. How important is it that anything you do with culture really also be directed towards what's happening on the field?
Oh, most definitely. And I think I don't know how the two aren't interrelated, and I don't know how you go about doing anything. And so without those two being interrelated, and I think, one of the things that, from my dad, my dad coached a lot of great players. He coached 3 or 4 guys that are in the Hall of Fame, in Dick Butkus and Andre Tippett and, some pretty good football players. And with that being said, I never heard my dad cuss, and I never heard my dad demean a guy, and I never heard my dad degrade a guy. And now I heard my dad yell at players and, get their attention and things, but none of it was personal. And I think a lot of coaches, stand up in front of their teams and go, hey, when we correct you, it's not personal. Well, if it's not personal, then don't compare them to how, I've heard coaches say how dumb guys are, how weak they are. Well, if it's not personal, then don't use personal terms. We don't use personal terms, okay? And we don't degrade guys. And we also don't use profanity. And so for us, and again, I've been a head coach 20 years. We've been doing it that way for 20 years. For us, we're trying to get a guy to play at his ultimate best. And we're trying to figure out ways to communicate that to him. Gary Barnett, who was our running back coach, quarterback coach at the University of Colorado, went on to become the head coach at Northwestern. He's the guy who took the purple to Pasadena and then finished up at Colorado. He's one of the first guys that I ever heard just talk to players in a different way. And, before it was, hey, don't fumble. You can't be fumbling the ball. For him, he was hold on to the ball, secure the ball. He was going to paint a positive picture in a guy's mind. That stuck with me. I've been in and I've been around practices where, guys are saying, your hands are like stone, your hands are like bricks. We tell the guy, catch the ball, see it in, and, be there for it. So everything that we're doing is trying to create a positive picture. Now, again, you take out players cussing, you take out a lot of the degrading, of guys calling guys out and guys saying things. Now you got a lot of opportunity to impact and a lot of opportunity to influence in a practice. And so, part of our rules are, hey, we're not going to cuss, and we're going to treat each other the right way.
Absolutely, and I really have always believed in that too. I think it's something my dad taught. My dad was a football coach as well at the high school level, and really taught me a lot about visualization and creating a positive picture. And I was always cautious of any of our coaches, and especially myself, using that negative language, that don't language, don't do this, don't do that, and framing things out in a different way. So something positive is always coming out of your mouth. Something affirmative is always coming out of your mouth. And I think, like you said, never ever really attack the person. You're talking about performance. And again, keeping it even positive in those situations as well.
No, and the other part I'd add to that, I think, which gets lost, and, I'm guilty of it, and I got to remind myself and I got to remind my staff, but if you meet right before you practice, okay, what are you showing them right before they go out? If you show them all the negative right before they go out, that's probably what they're thinking about during stretching. That's probably what they're thinking about during individual. I mean, you've obviously got to correct, and you've obviously got to show the negative and get better at it. But how you frame your meeting, if your meeting is right before practice, I think is vital to the productivity and the positivity that you're going to get out there. Cover the negatives early, send them out with what a great visual looks like, send them out with a positive play, send them out with them doing something spectacular. Hey, now let's go out and practice. And while they're stretching, they're like, man, I made a great play. I can do this. I can make it go, as opposed to, dang, I got to fix this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think how we frame things, the timing of things, very important to creating what you're looking for on the field.
Coach, let's get a little bit into the strategy side of it. And, you know, you've primarily, you know, been a guy who really likes the offensive side of the ball over the course of your career. So, you know, in the day and age of a lot of branded things, a lot of guys are naming their offenses this or that. But give us a description of what your offense is, you know, so our listeners can understand what you guys are trying to do on the field.
Sure. We're probably, you know, for modern day term, you know, we're a spread offense. We like to describe ourselves really as multi-formational offense that is, number one, going to take what the defense gives us. And so we do incorporate some checks. We do incorporate some RPOs. But really, we're just trying to play smart football. And last year, we threw the ball 517 times, and we ran the ball 512. So I'd say we're pretty balanced.
Yeah.
Okay? But with that is not necessarily something that our offensive staff tries to do. That is not something that we sit here and say, hey, you know, at the end of the day, if we're going to run, you know, 80 plays, 40 of them got to be runs and 40 of them got to be passes. At the end of the day, we want to take what the defense gives us. And so, you know, I think it was right before the national championship game. We played a team that consistently put 6 people in the box, and we had been throwing the ball pretty well up till that, and really hadn't run the ball great. You know, we ended up rushing for the highest that we've ever rushed for, but we just kept calling it, and they kept keeping 6 in the box. Well, we were pretty good if you can get, you know, a hat on a hat. I mean, that was something that I thought our offense did well. That game, we didn't throw the ball much. The week before, we ended up throwing the ball more. The week after, we ended up throwing the ball more. But we really do have a take what the defense gives us mentality.
Coach, with your personnel, what are the 2 or 3 that you really focus on? And, you know, this is probably what we look like from the people we're putting on the field.
Yeah, we want to be an 11 personnel team and a 10 personnel team, and that's really based on our personnel right now. I've been doing the offense for a while, and Jamie Deese, our offensive coordinator, has been with me now, I think, going on 11 years. And, you know, we've done this offense where it's been a 12 personnel offense, it's been a 20 personnel, but we try to recruit to 11 and 10 personnel. Those are the majority of the sets that we're doing. And we want to be multi-formational in that. We want to be able to put stuff into the boundary. We want to be able to do unbalanced. We want to be able to run your 3x1s and your 2x2s, all different combinations of that, with the tight end on the line, with the tight end in flex, with the tight end in the backfield. So we're gonna try to present as many different looks as we possibly can to the team defensively, and then let them try to figure out what we're trying to do.
What's the key for your guys being able to have something that is obviously the appearance to the defense is very complex, but it's easy for your guys to learn that it's not a burden of learning that slows them down on the field?
Yeah, we don't do, and I think after people have played us, you know, we're going on some of the teams in our conference because we played 2 of them in the playoffs. You know, we played them 3 times in our 2-year existence. We don't do a lot from schematical sense, but we do a lot from where your eyes need to be defensively and how we get to it. And so for our players, they know that everything comes back to the core or one of our core plays. We throw in, you know, a motion, we throw in a trade, we throw in a stack formation. They know that all that is we're going to get back to the core base play. I still got to get to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
and we have about 5 core plays that in the passing game that we try to, maximize. And then in the running game, we're going to run outside zone, we're going to run a gap, and we primarily live off the inside zone. Well, we can run it out of all these formations. We can run it out of all these looks. And it really is simple to our players. But I think we try to analyze ourselves a lot. You're not quite sure where we're coming from, and you're not quite sure what we're trying to get at, and everything kind of balances itself. So I think that's been one of the keys, is presenting a bunch of different looks, but our players adapt to it very well. And then I think one of the keys that we've done, and we've really done this over the years, is we don't give the O-line, 50 things that they've got to know. Mm-hmm. We try to get our O-line good at what they do, and then we'll put the pressure on the quarterback and the running back. Hey, on this one, let's do a pump fake or fake this or do that, and add to it that it kind of looks like our inside zone or looks like our gap scheme, but then let's come back and do this. Simple for those guys to do because they don't have as many responsibilities, but really trying to keep the offensive line in a position where they can be successful week in and week out, because they're the ones who are seeing a 2-eye, a shade, a 3, and they got to be able to figure all that stuff out.
Coach, how much has the RPO become part of your offense?
It's there. I don't know that we used it as much as, as a lot of people, but it has created some nice opportunities for us. And the other thing that it's done, whether we're throwing the ball or not, it's really made the defense, have to account for a pass almost every play. Mm-hmm. And it kind of gets those DBs tired. So I don't know that we're sitting here as an offensive staff going, we're a huge RPO team and, we're doing that. We'll call certain plays that have passes along with a run. And, some of them just became where we're getting the defense tired. We're still running the ball. But I don't know that it's a huge part of what we do, but it's blended in nicely.
Mm-hmm. Coach, I know before we got going, we were talking about a gap scheme that you have, and it ties in very well with your zone. But it's a little bit different in that you typically in a gap scheme, you're going to kick someone out. You guys have something that you don't have the kickoff block in, and you're able to utilize this, like you said, in multiple personnel and multiple formation settings.
Yeah, really what we wanted to get to, and I think, a lot of people run the power, and then a lot of people run the counter. And, I've run both of them over the years. And, what became frustrating with both those plays was, defenses got really, really good at wrong arming, got really, really good at blowing up that puller. And, those plays are great when that end plays wide and you create this nice gap up in there, so to speak. What we do differently, which times up and, makes it easy for our tackles, is, we base front side with our tackle, and that allows him to do the same thing that he's doing on inside zone. And then we'll pull the guard to wrap for the linebacker, and we'll pull the tight end backside to wrap for the backside linebacker. And really, it gave us cleaner angles, and it gave us cleaner blocks, because now you don't have a crashing D end coming and trying to blow up that pulling guard, or you don't have that crashing D end blow up that fullback who's coming from 2 yards deep in the backfield trying to inside out this guy. Mm-hmm. So by keeping the tackle on, both those plays really became, pretty good combos for us that matched up with our inside zone. And then we do an inside zone where our backside tackle stays and our tight end comes up inside, kind of looks like the gap. So we've had some good success with that. And really, again, trying to keep it as simple as we can on the offensive line, where, you're not spending, 10 minutes of Indy, for that pulling guard or that fullback trying to get, the right angle on this guy. We're still doing other stuff that we do and fits in with our zone game.
Coach, is that one you would attach an RPO to?
We do, yeah, and we've had success with that as well.
What might that play look like? I know we don't have the ability to draw things up on the chalkboard right here, but can you take us through, the formation and I guess key coaching points along the way for that play?
Yeah, so Yeah, very, very simple. 3 wide receivers set with the tight end in the backfield in a wing position. Okay, so 2 wide receivers to the field or to the boundary. We do it both ways. So let's just go 2 wide receivers to the field, 1 wide receiver to the boundary. The tight end is in a wing to the field, and now we're going to run the gap back to the boundary. And so our field guard is going to pull, and our tight end is going to follow. And then depending on, because we do it both ways, depending on which way our quarterback opens, where the back is, we've either got a slant or an out by the wide receiver to the boundary, or we've got a slant or a hitch to the wide receiver in the slot to the field. And it all just depends on which way we open up, and which way we want to run it. So we're always trying to, create a gap and a seam for where we're trying to throw with that. And then the quarterback, he's reading the linebacker to the field, or he's reading the boundary safety and seeing if we have the void to throw the ball.
With the setup of that play, you got the guard coming through, you got the tight end H-back, the guy off the line coming through. What's their coaching point as they come up through the gap to be able to sort that out for the 2 guys?
Yeah, what we want to do is for the guard, we want him to get his head on the inside, and then so he wants to come inside out on that block. And then for the tight end, we want him to get as much of that linebacker as possible, and the back can read off of that to see the direction that he needs to go. And so, we're going to study all week long where that safety fills, what the angle is that we're trying to do. And so, there are certain things that week to week are going to change on that. But for the most part, if we can get that guard inside out, and that means now that linebacker's crashing down, where's that safety filling to determine whether we're throwing or handing the ball off?
Coach, when I was reading up and doing a little research for this interview, I read in an article online the credit you gave to everybody in your program for receiving this award. And, I think it's great how you view that so many people contribute to those things. And, we've talked a lot about the great things you're doing in your program to build this. But if I were to put you on the spot and say, Coach, you got to pick one thing that you guys do that really gives you the winning edge, that really allowed you to excel and get to the national championship game, what would that be?
Well, I'm gonna go 2 things. Okay, so because I think and they play together, but I would say our unity is what got us to where we were able to play 15 games and play them well. Guys believing in each other, and then number 2 on the field, we played as good of team football as I've ever been around. And what I mean by that is when the defense got a turnover, the offense was going to score the majority of the time. When we got a great kickoff return, the offense was going to go get points. When we punted the ball deep, our defense was going to pin them. We played great field position football, great team football. In 2016, we were the worst team in the country in turning the ball over. We turned the ball over more than anybody else in Division II. And in 2017, we fumbled 4 times, down from, I think, 16 in 2016. And, we just played great team football. We fed off each other. But I think it goes back to our unity, and I think it goes back to our belief in each other.
Coach, it's a great thing you guys are doing there in Florida. I'm jealous of the weather right now, even though you said it's a cold 57 degrees.
Yeah, people are bundled up, man. People are bundled up with that 57 now. It'll get up to 61, and maybe somebody will take the jacket off. I don't know.
How can I would love to come there and just see you guys practice, but in the world today, we're able to get access to each other through social media and other things. So how can our coaches, our listeners, get in contact with you if they want to learn more about the things you guys do?
Yeah, goargos.com. That's our website. And I think all our Twitter information, all our coaches' information is on there. And so, guys have questions, send me an email. Just, say, hey, I listened to it. But you go to goargos.com. All our info's up there, all our Twitter handles, all our social media stuff. And, you can learn about the Argos and learn about what we're doing.
Coach, I really appreciate your time on the podcast. and look forward to see what you guys do here in 2018.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us on.
Well, there's my first interview with Coach Shinnick. We did another one about a year ago, and I'll put the link to that one in the show notes. Again, just an incredible coach doing an incredible job in West Florida. If you are enjoying the podcast, please take a minute to go over to iTunes and hit 5-star for rate. If you have a minute, please write a review. It helps the podcast. Follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski, and follow all we're doing at coachingcoordinator.com.